Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, October 4th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. For non-playoff bound teams like the Royals, the season ends on Wednesday. They'll get a jump on their team's big decisions, and for the Royals, it starts with manager Mike Matheny. Will he be back next season? Matheny will have completed 3 years with the Royals without a playoff run, and the person who hired him, Dayton Moore, is no longer with the club. On today's SportsBeat KC, beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Vahe Gregorian break down the future of Matheny and that of starting pitcher Zack Greinke, who appeared in his final game on Monday and finished with a solid .368 ERA. Okay, so we're talking Royals future, and let's get started. Good morning from sunny Kansas City, and welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly discussion about the Kansas City Royals with the folks in the media who know the best. Beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Vahe Gregorian are here today. We are presented by the University of Kansas Health System, and you'll hear from KU Med later in the show. All right, guys. So the Royals, 2 games left in the season. They play tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern time, or our time, and then 3 o'clock on Wednesday, if I'm reading the newspaper correctly. And they had a win last night. Extra inning victory over the Cleveland Guardians, and they won it on this blast by Drew Waters.
Their ability to score 1 run when they need to. Waters hits it deep to left field. It is gone for a 10th inning, 3-run home run.
I kind of like what Drew Waters has been doing the last week or so, Lynn. What do you make of Drew Waters' little hot streak?
Yeah, I mean it's part of what I think you saw, or what we saw at least numbers wise when he was in AAA Omaha. That power. I mean, he's not a big dude, but that power was part of his profile, part of what they liked. He's one of those 5-tool type guys with his speed, his power, his ability to hit for both average and power, and his throwing arm. And he's, I think, he had back-to-back games with home runs over the weekend. So now it's at 3 in the last, I guess, 4 games. I believe he was in the lineup on. I think it's 3 and 4 games now. So, so he, he's showing a little bit of what they thought they were, getting, what made them so excited when they traded that draft pick for him. Remembering that was the deal they made right before the draft this season.
Yeah, that was quite a swat for him to win that game. So two games left, as we were mentioning. That game started by Zack Grienke, by the way, and I wanted to spend some time today talking about Zack Greinke's future with the Royals and in baseball, because it was his last start and more than likely his last appearance of the season on Monday. His season is over, and listen, he has been a positive force for the Royals this year in an otherwise bleak season. Was it a .368 ERA? And Vahe, I know you've seen him pitch a couple times, and he's just to have a veteran pitcher like that in the clubhouse, I think is of value. Just signed a 1-year deal last year with the Royals. Is he somebody who can come back, who should come back? What do you think about Zack Greinke's future with the Royals?
Well, I tell you what, Blair, you hit the nail on the head, I think, in terms of his presence. And Lynn saw this in spring training, and so did I, and so did Sam McDowell. I mean, really, from the day he arrived down there, he became a little bit of a, sort of a Pied Piper presence, right, where all the younger guys, and everybody's younger than Zack Greinke, were drawn to him. And not only that, he reciprocated. I mean, it was very striking scene to see him out sitting behind them doing their bullpens in the first few days out there, making himself approachable. And I think what you saw all through the season was, sometimes some really good moments, but certainly stable in a staff, the most stable element in a lot of ways on a staff in flux. it's hard to penetrate what Zack is thinking just because he doesn't really take you inside. I think I saw that he had some discussion with Andy Rogers, our friend up in Cleveland, saying he hasn't decided about next year. But I suppose that if he's going to pitch next year, he would do it with the Royals. At this point, he can make X amount of money. Maybe he could make X amount of money more elsewhere. But I think there's a comfort for him being with the Royals. And, I could have that entirely wrong, but sure looks like he's got more to give if he wants to.
Even without Dayton Moore there, which might be a factor for him. But what do you think, Lynn? You think Zack Greinke is finished with baseball, or does he come back? And does he come back in a Royals uniform?
I don't think he's finished. I mean, there hasn't been any indication, not that there necessarily would have been one way or another for sure from Zack, but there hasn't been any indication that he's done. To be clear, I mean, I'm not in Cleveland, so I wasn't there last night when he spoke after the game. But apparently, when he was asked by MLB.com, he did mention that he hadn't made a decision, but he did also mention, and he said sort of not to make a big deal of it, but he said the fact that Dayton wasn't there is going to be something that they miss. So how does that play in? I'm not sure, but the fact that he mentioned it, at least to MLB.com, to me, at least raises an antenna. The fact that they made that move and that he's going to be a free agent, it's not like he's under contract and it's either he retires or he comes back to them. He could go anywhere. He had other teams that were reportedly after him, when he signed during spring training, teams that offered more money, but he decided he wanted to come back to Kansas City because of the connection with Kansas City and in part because of the connection to the front office. As far as his production this year, I mean, he wasn't their best pitcher. I mean, as much as he's got the best resume and, as far as his track record, it far surpasses anybody else. But, I think as far as production this season, Brady Singer, you would probably say, pitched better than him this year. But just sort of the insight he can provide to the young pitchers, and we've talked all season about how they've been trying to break in so many young starting pitchers at the same time. Zack at least was another sounding board, another experience, a guy that they could bounce things off of, a guy who would literally tell them things that he would just see, maybe unsolicited at times. It's been through everything, whether it's playoff games, won a Cy Young, pitched 18 seasons in the big leagues. I think with his performance, his individual performance, I think the thing that stands out to me is there's a couple of times, particularly before he went on the IL, where he was having issues with his forearm, and those starts just weren't good at all. Like those starts were just rough. But when you're talking about a guy who's 38, 39, you got to also factor in, okay, is that going to be more of a regular thing if he keeps pitching, deeper into his career? Is that going to, you don't want to say, oh, well, he's not going to be able to pitch, but you say, is that going to, it happened twice this year where he had IL stints for the forearm. He's had them in the past. So as he gets closer to 40, are we saying that that's going to happen less often? So another thing that you have to factor in. But I think overall, especially having a steady presence when you had so many guys who hadn't pitched full seasons or had maybe one full season in the big leagues, he was definitely valuable in that sense.
Yeah, look, 26 starts, 137? If I had that scribbled down here. But anyway, the record reflects the Royals' record. He was 4-9. I was hoping he'd get the win last night, but didn't get it. But 4-9. But that 3.68 ERA shows he is still an effective major league pitcher, and I'd like to see him back in a Royals uniform next year. Right? We don't know when you're talking about the starting rotation. We just don't know who fills in beyond Brady Singer and Zack Greinke if he returns. There are plenty of candidates, but based on performance this year, what sure bets are there for the Royals rotation in 2023, Lynn?
I'm not sure how many. When you say sure bets, I guess the first question is: are we betting your money? I'm not betting my money on too many of them. Just as far as sure bets,
even with gambling legal in the state of Kansas.
Yeah, well, I'm on the Missouri side, so but no, I mean, now when it was 2 weeks ago when we had JJ Piccolo on, one of the more interesting things from that conversation for me at least was the fact that he said flat out they hadn't closed the door on Brad Keller as a starter, even though he's going to finish this year in the bullpen since the middle of August for the last month and a half or so, and he'd be, as far as innings, starts, experience, one of their more, in theory, reliable guys that you could put in that rotation next season. Sounds like it's one of those things where it may depend on what options they have this offseason, whether that means bringing back Zack Greinke or that means being able to go out and get some free agents. Now you have some other guys who look like they could be potential, like, you pencil them in, but you're not sure exactly what that performance is necessarily going to look like, whether that's Daniel Lynch, who, has taken the ball regularly, had his first full big league season because he came up last year in April or May. So he's looked good at times, really good. He's had some growing pains, but I mean, we were saying the same thing about Brady Singer, a year or so ago. Chris Bubich, had a rough season. He's another one who's, got some experience since he came up in 2020. And so he's been one of your more experienced guys in the big leagues. But he's just had such a variance where, there's times, last year, you think about last year, I think there was a game, I don't remember if it was last year or not, but where he took a no-hitter into the seventh inning out in Chicago. And you see outings like that, but then you see outings where he doesn't make it through 2-3 innings, multiple times this season. And obviously Jonathan Heasley, when he's been healthy this season, has looked really good. I mean, there was a time in spring training when we thought, okay, maybe he's going to get one of those rotation spots because, he was right there with everybody else. So they have candidates like was mentioned earlier. It's just a matter of which ones do you count on. I think you count on Singer. If Greinke's there, you count on him to be, at least a stable, steady force. Keller, will be able to give you innings, be a workhorse. It's just, again, he's had a lot of ups and downs this season, and it seems like he's one of those ones that's really dependent on situation as far as defense and, because he's going to be a ground ball pitcher. He's not going to be a strikeout pitcher. So there's a lot of guys who you could make a case for. I'm just not sure how many you just, pencil in right now and just go forward and say that's end of story.
Okay. I want to talk about the future of Royals manager Mike Matheny as well, but let's do this. Let's hear from the University of Kansas Health System, and when we come back, we'll talk about Mike Matheny and the Royals.
March 4th, 2015, I got out of the shower and felt a lump in my left breast.
We were able to quickly uncover that she had 2 subtypes of breast cancer, each of them requiring separate and unique treatment plans. This is why you come to the University of Kansas Cancer Center.
It is critical to be treated by a team of experts in that specific cancer type. If you don't start with us, I think you'll have more questions than answers.
Why would you go anywhere else?
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There's Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. We're back on SportsBeat Live talking Royals with Vahe Gregorian and Lynn Worthy. Please send us your questions and comments and join our conversation. Okay. As we mentioned earlier, Dayton Moore was relieved a couple of weeks ago, and JJ Piccolo is in the decision-making chair for the Royals. And Vahe, I think he's got a big one coming up here, and then maybe later this week or after an evaluation period when it comes to Royals manager Mike Matheny. Listen, the Cliff Notes version of Matheny in Kansas City is, under 500, in each of his 3 years, not near a playoff position for the Royals. The roster certainly has turned over now. It's a very young lineup, but there are some. I guess there are case for and a case against Mike Matheny returning as the Royals manager. Before you start, though, I wanted to let you know there have been 6 managers in baseball this year that either have been fired or will that we know will step down after the season. And Tony La Russa, stepping down for health reasons with the White Sox, and Don Mattingly in Florida has already announced his, resignation after the Marlins season is over. 2 of the teams that changed managers in mid-season, the Phillies and the Blue Jays, are actually headed to the playoffs. So I'd say that worked for them. But anyway, so that's a long way of setting up Vahe. What do you think about Mike Matheny's future?
Well, look, there's a lot of moving parts in this, Blair, and I think let's go to the regime change that we've already seen, right? With the Royals terminating Dayton Moore and putting this all in the hands of JJ Picollo. We have seen that JJ is, to use a term that people have been using, has been more inclined to be more transactional, I guess is the right word. We know JJ drove the early season firing of Terry Bradshaw. I bring that up just because it obviously is indicative of a willingness to make bigger moves faster, perhaps maybe than what we would see normally out of Dayton Moore. And so I think that the core of the question really is, this is a reset to some degree for the Royals, a restart. This is now JJ's decision, JJ's imprint. And I think if you feel that JJ was on board with Matheny the whole time, then you could see a reason why JJ is going to be inclined to stay with it. On the other hand, JJ may see this as a fresh start, a break from the past, and he's perhaps had questions about Mike, about whether Mike's effective, and that he may go the other way. I really don't feel like I have a headlights on what the decision-making process will be. I just think it's a question of whether you think in the end Mike has the right chemistry with this group, which, again, we've seen a lot of young players this year, and they've had a pretty good chance to evaluate how Mike works with these young players in ways that we probably don't see from the naked eye, by the way. Now, Lynn can speak to that with far more clarity, I think, just because of what he's been able to see day to day for so long.
And we will ask Lynn to speak to that. Carrie says Royals need to clean house, manager and GM next. So for the fans that I have read through social media, I think they're convinced that at least Mike Matheny needs to go. But social media is not the most accurate of gauges to measure what the consensus of opinion is. But Lynn, what do you think?
Well, I think to that comment, first of all, the GM is the one who's making this decision. They've already gotten rid of the president of baseball operations and elevated the GM, so he's not going anywhere. They did not make that change 2 weeks ago to then let JJ decide on the manager and then fire JJ. That's not how that works. So the GM is the GM. He's going to be, at least for the time being. And after the whole song and dance a couple of weeks ago, they're going to give him a chance to, get things going here, or at least try to set some sort of direction here going forward. Now, the manager and the coaching staff is another story. I think if nothing else, from, things we've heard from JJ, speaking of, the time he was on with us, it sounded like there were clear things as far as pitching development, maybe all the way up to the major leagues, but definitely in the minor leagues that he wanted to change. This was before he became the top official in baseball operations. When we talked to him after the change was made, one of the things he did mention was talking about being able to sort of pivot quickly or make changes on the fly. And he didn't point to any specific people, but to me, I think that was more of regarding the pitching staff and the starters and some of the struggles they've had, and maybe, getting off track early and not being able to make that change. Now, at that same time, I mean, I think just the other day we put up the story about Brady Singer and the adjustment he made this year. So I think, and I know people always, want to say Cal Eldred, you do need to give credit for things like that when they made that adjustment. Actually, two different adjustments. One was actually about his landing, and then that helped them get to the point where they can make the adjustment with his hand placement. So there have been adjustments the guys have made. Jonathan Heasley's been trying to make an adjustment with his landing. Some of these guys have transitioned to different roles. Cal's played a big part in that. At the same time, the pitching staff as a whole has struggled badly all season. There's no doubt about that. And I think, I wouldn't be surprised if that's, top of JJ's list. Now, what that means as far as Matheny, obviously they've been close. They've been close since their playing days. Both spent time in the Cardinals organization. Is that something that Matheny pushes back against? I don't know. If so, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got to go too, just on that fact alone. Now, separate from that, Matheny's track record, I mean, I know people look at the last couple of years and say, well, the record hasn't been good. Somebody's got to pay for that. I don't think the roster has necessarily been, at a level where you say that these guys have, way underperformed that they should have been a playoff team. Now, this season, they should have been better than probably what their record was, but how much better and how much that falls on Matheny, how much that falls on guys just not performing, which is what, a lot of it was early in the season. I guess that's open to interpretation, and ultimately JJ has the final interpretation that matters on that one. But I don't think it's, I don't think it's as cut as dry as, okay, they haven't won games, so, Matheny's got to go. I also think, the main thing is what Vahe mentioned there was that how does he fit with these guys, this young core? How do they feel like he fits with this young core going forward? I think that's going to be the major factor, because if you're just judging off of his track record, what they've done, I don't know, pick your manager in there. Is the record that much better with the same roster? If whoever you want to pick, La Russa, Kevin Cash, name whoever it is in there. I'm not sure how much different that is. So this question that pops up about he's a manager for veterans. Well, I was like, most of this year the roster has been young guys, and for the knocks that we heard in St. Louis about how he wasn't good for young guys. Well, I shouldn't say all he's had. Most of what he's had the time he's been here has been young players, and they've been transitioning young guys into the majors every year that he's been the manager, going back to the shortened season, last season, and this year. So it's going to be an interesting decision. I don't think it's as simple as they haven't won, so he's got to go. But if they feel like he's not the right fit for this young core going forward, I think that's part of what got TB, Terry Bradshaw let go. I think that's going to be what's probably going to result in Cal Eldred being let go. So I'm just not sure where Matheny falls in that category.
Yeah, you're right, Lynn, about the Matheny in his 3 years really has been tasked with helping develop young players at the major league level. First, it was the pitchers, right? And this year, it's the lineup. The results on the field have been poor, and I like your point also that what manager would have turned this in any of his three teams into playoff-worthy, contenders down the stretch. I'm not sure that could have happened, but it's a bottom line business, right? I mean, and teams that are, teams that have better records than the Royals have changed managers, looking to just change the needle and change the direction of the organization. And unless the Royals catch the Rangers, the Texas Rangers, in record and winning percentage, every team that has made a change or is going to make a change in baseball this year will finish the season with a better record than the Royals. And and you might have a situation where the Royals don't change managers. I don't think we look at it anymore and asking ourselves, is 3 years enough? I think enough has changed above, in the front office that that where I would have said in a regime led by Dayton Moore that Mike Matheny would have gotten the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that's true now with JJ at the top. I think he's going to be more results oriented, bottom line oriented, and it just this season was a disappointment. That's what JJ told us 2 weeks ago, right? Or last 2 weeks ago. Season was a disappointment, not where they thought they'd be, and I think you just have to have more than the hitting coach pay for that kind of result. Am I off base here, Vahe?
No, I think you're right. And I think one thing just to add, I mean, each circumstance is different. And you're right that there have been some moves made for obviously with teams with better records and things that ignited, or at least initially have turned things for different teams. I think here's what I feel like you can count on in this. I think there will be, it's only 3 years, we can say that, but I think they've had a chance to have an honest evaluation of how Mike connects with young players. And again, we've seen anecdotal stuff where people say, he should, instead of sitting this guy or pinch hitting this guy, he's only working with veterans and, trust them too much. You can cling to that, but I think they see a broader, to use the word of the day, broader data on this, whether it's really through numbers or actually through interpersonal relationships and how he deals with these young guys. He has a whole roster of rookies, right, in a lot of ways. And if they don't know by now that he can or can't work with them in a way that resonates with them, I think they're not doing their jobs to be able to evaluate that. I mean, you just would think they've seen enough one way or another. It's been a warped time. All of COVID has been a warped time, right? His first season is the 60-game season, and even then you're in rebuild mode. I bring that up only to just make this punctuation mark on this, and just each situation is its own. The Royals situation is unique, as are those of every other team. And a 3-year window here, yeah, he's had his hand tied behind his back on some things, but the real thing is, are they able to demonstrate a path forward and growth and knowing how to do that? And that's the entire essence of the question to me.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the comments from Kerry here. Organization needs with this core needs a younger manager. I can understand that thought, and look at the Orioles, the improvement that Baltimore made. They fell short of the playoffs, but are over going to be over 500 and came from place where the Royals were the last couple of years. So. Listen, there are a couple other topics I wanted to get to today. The Royals finished the home part of their season last week and had their lowest attendance since 1975, 1.27 million through the turnstiles this year. But we're going to have to save that for another time because we are out of time today. We'll also ask you. Maybe we'll talk about this next week. Think about your Royals player and pitcher of the year. For me, there's an easy one for player, and for pitcher, it's even easy for me. But I think there's a couple of worthy candidates for pitcher of the year. So that'll be maybe we'll be talking about the manager's position as well when we speak again. So for Lynn Worthy and Vahe Gregorian, and for our producers Monty Davis and George Howard. And to all you guys, thanks for tuning. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Monty Davis, Randy Mason, George Howard, and Jeff Rosen. Tip of the cap to Lynn Worthy and Vahe Gregorian for stopping by and sharing their insights on the Royals. Hey, the morning sports edition was 50 pages today, full of Royals, Chiefs, college football, every sport, you name it, it's covered in the morning sports edition. For more information, go to liveedition.kansascity.com. SportsBeat.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC